Hello everybody, it's me, Mr. Mint, and this is another flip video lesson. This flip video lesson will be on lesson 21.6 B. Yes, 21.6 B. Now this flip video lesson will not be hosted by me, I'm just the introduction person. So, without further ado, please put your hands together for Mr. Volkman! Woohoo! Clap, clap! Are you clapping? Because if you're not, I'd feel awfully foolish. Whew. Well, thanks for that lovely introduction, Mr. Mint. Yes, we have another flip video lesson talking about the fall of the Compromise of 1850. The previous flip video, we looked at how the Fugitive Slave Act and Uncle Tom's Cabin really started these negative feelings about the slave trade. With the North, it was because they didn't want the slave trade anymore. And for the South, it was because they felt that their property was not being returned to them, but also because they felt like the federal government was trying to force them and other states to get rid of slavery. Today's flip video lesson is going to talk about the Kansas and Nebraska Act, and how really this act was the final nail in the coffin for the Compromise of 1850. But also looking at how this act started violence in Kansas, which is known by many names, and I will refer to it as the Bleeding of Kansas. But also how it started actual physical violence in Congress. So, remember, this is a video for education purposes. If there's anything you do not understand, please pause the video. You can write me an email and I will respond to you as quickly as I can, or you can ask me in class. Begin by talking about the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. Now, I'm not going to go in too much depth talking about what started the act. All you need to know is it has to do with money, a railroad, and settlers. If you want to connect the dots with that, I encourage you to look it up on YouTube. I'm sure you'll find lots of videos by men who have researched that topic in depth. What you need to know about the Kansas-Nebraska Act is that it was going to allow popular sovereignty, which, if you remember from previous videos, meant that the settlers in the territories could choose for themselves if slavery would be a part of their territories. Now, popular sovereignty was used earlier. Do you remember the name of the two states from the Compromise of 1850 that allowed popular sovereignty? If you remember them, please whisper them quietly into your computer screen, and through the power of technology, I will be able to hear your answers. I'm going to get close here. Yeah? Uh-huh. What's that? Uh-huh. Yeah, a little louder. Oh, you're right. You all whispered New Mexico and Utah. Now, we both know that it ended up, they both voted for slavery. So, Kansas-Nebraska Act was going to allow popular sovereignty for Nebraska and Kansas. Now here's the deal. Nebraska's way up north. Everyone knew they were probably going to vote for freedom to get rid of slavery. Because look, there's all these free territories and free states by them. Kansas is and was a different story. Kansas was surrounded by slave states down here, slave territories here, but also by free states and free territories. So it became kind of this battleground. And it was a battleground not with physical fighting yet, but a battleground to control if they were going to vote for slavery or for no slavery. The New England Immigrant Aid Company was pushing and tried really hard to get people to move out to Kansas to vote against slavery. They wanted to vote to make Kansas free. And in the summer of 1855, more than 9,000 pioneers or settlers had settled in Kansas, courtesy of this company. How did people in the South feel about all of these people moving from the East Coast into Kansas to try to vote for abolishing slavery? Well, they feared that this New England Immigrant Aid Company wanted to convert Kansas into this safe haven, into this safe place for runaway slaves who would potentially leave Missouri or any of these southern states. I'm free! I'm free! You can't catch me! I'm in a free territory! Woohoo! I'm free! Yes, I'm free! And then they would all go, oh, sadness, our free work labor is gone. So as you can see, they didn't necessarily like that idea at all. So what would they do? May 1855, a pro-slavery legislature was elected. And what did this pro-slavery legislature do? Well, they did what any pro-slavery legislature would do. They had people move from Missouri into Kansas to vote for slavery. So they're kind of taking a book out of the northern states' playbook. This pro-slavery legislature voted for laws that said that only pro-slavery men could hold office or serve in juries. Well, in the fall of 1855, the Free Soilers, or those who did not like slavery, held their own political convention in a different part of Kansas. And what did they do? Well, they created their own constitution that banned slavery. So now there's a problem. Because now you have two legislatures in Kansas. A state can only have one. So our president at the time, Franklin Pierce, had a decision to make. Which legislature is he going to support and say to Congress, we need to listen to these guys? Well, I think that his inner struggle and inner thoughts would have gone something like this. Well, I don't know what to do. I have this free soil legislature that wants to ban slavery in Kansas, and I have this legislature up here that wants to make slavery legal in Kansas. Oh, I don't know what to do. Oh boy, mommy dearest, never prepared me to make such hard decisions like this. I don't know what to do. Should I go with these guys? Should I go with these guys? Oh, phooey. Let's just go with the slavery guys. It'll make us lots of money, I guess. Now, I'm not sure if his inner conversation would have gone completely like that, but we can imagine it was a struggle. And that's what happened. He went to Congress and said that Kansas should be allowed to come into the Union as a slave state. Well, you can only imagine how people reacted to something like that. So, Kansas votes to allow slavery into their territory. What were some of the reactions? Well, let's just say bloodshed in Kansas definitely describes what happened. May 21st, 1856, 800 pro-slavery men, many of them from actually the state of Missouri, marched into Lawrence, Kansas, which was right on the border, to arrest the leaders of the local anti-slavery group. What did they do? Well, they burned local hotels. They looted a number of homes. They destroyed the abolitionist printing press, and they killed one man. And one person was quoted as saying, "Gentlemen, this is the happiest day of my life." Ooh, don't invite him to your birthday party. So what did the abolitionist people do in return? Well, John Brown, a devoted Bible-quoting Calvinist, who did believe it was his duty to overthrow slavery, he announced that the time had come to fight fire with fire. And that they should, they being the abolitionists, strike terror into the hearts of the pro-slavery men. So Brown and 6 companions dragged 5 pro-slavery men and boys from their beds at Potawatomi Creek. And you may not want to hear this next graphic part, so you may want to plug your ears. And what did they do to those boys and men? Well, they split open their skulls with a sword, and they cut off their hands. You can imagine a war of revenge erupted in Kansas. Pro-slavery Southerners ransacked free farms looking for Brown. Armed bands of men looted stores and farms. Pro-slavery forces ransacked John Brown's headquarters. And in return, well, John Brown's men killed 4 Missourians. Now, this is only a little bit of the border wars, as sometimes this is referred to. I encourage you to take a closer look at this picture. These men here were different politicians during this time that, in some people's views, allowed this to happen with the Kansas-Nebraska Act. When all was said and done, the guerrilla warfare in eastern Kansas left 200 men dead, all because of Kansas being allowed to have popular sovereignty and then voting for slavery. Now, Kansas, if you remember, is above that 3630 line. And they voted for slavery. So this act here really does spell the end of the Compromise of 1850, but also of the Missouri Compromise as well. Well, bloodshed in Kansas wasn't enough. Now we have to talk about the violence in Congress. After all this was happening in Kansas, Senator Charles Sumner of Massachusetts, this man right here, began a 2-day speech in which he denounced the crimes against Kansas. He spoke against bleeding Kansas violence. And after the raid in Lawrence, which was the first terrible thing that happened in Kansas, he called out and spoke against a number of Southern senators. One of those men was Andrew Butler of South Carolina. That bell, I tell you. Sumner accused Butler of taking the harlot slavery for his mistress and proceeded to make fun of a medical disorder that Butler had and suffered. "Oh, you shouldn't make fun of me." "Oh, I think I will." After Sumner's speech, where he threw the Southern senators under the bus, personally attacked Andrew Butler, Congressman Preston Brooks of South Carolina took matters into his own hands. Now, Brooks was actually Butler's nephew. And Preston Brooks attacked Sumner over the head with a cane. "Ah, that's what you get for making fun of my uncle. Oof, ow, my face. Ah, oof, ouch. Ah, take that. And that. Oh, not my pretty nose. Ah, your pretty nose. Ah, ouch, ouch, you're hurting me. You're hurting me. Ah, take that." It went something like that. As Brooks attacked Sumner, his cane flew into pieces. And Brooks then quietly left the chamber, Senate chamber. Now, people have said that Brooks caned Sumner rather than challenging him to a duel, which is what a Southern gentleman should have done, because he regarded the senator from Massachusetts as his social inferior. Sumner was left as senseless as a corpse for several minutes. His head was bleeding from the wounds on his head, and the blood was soaking into his clothes. And it took Sumner 3 years to recover from his injuries and to return back to the Senate. Because of the lack of time I have in the video, I'm going to have you pause the video if you want to look at these various drawings of what the attack actually people thought looked like. So the downfall of the Compromise of 1850 was as such again. We had the Fugitive Slave Act, which made it illegal to help slaves escape, and that people in the North and South were legally bound to find captured slaves and return them to their owners. You had Uncle Tom's Cabin, which showed the North the true terror and horror of slavery and how it pulled families apart. And Southerners were angry at this portrayal, saying that it exaggerated what the South was like. You had the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which allowed people in Kansas and Nebraska to vote for whether or not they wanted slavery. And this caused the bleeding of Kansas, or the Kansas border wars, as people fought to get into Kansas to be able to vote. And they fought each other. And that fighting then caused the Sumner Attack, after Sumner wasn't very nice in his words to people. Well, thank you for sticking in with this extra long video. I appreciate it. Go to Moto to answer the homework questions, and I will see you in class tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow I'll be there.